The cashier had already scanned the cake before. Walt Kowalczyk raised his hand and said, "Wait, hold on, just hold on a second." Loretta Fenn stopped mid-motion, her fingers still hovering over the register. Behind him, the line had grown to 4 people, and every one of them could hear the change jingling in his pocket as he dug through it like the answer might be hiding at the bottom. "I'm short," he said, quiet enough that he hoped only she'd hear it. "Just ring up the rest. Put the cake back." Loretta didn't move right away. She'd known Walt since high school, since before his hands had calluses shaped like wrench handles, since before his daughter existed at all. "Walt, it's $4. Loretta. His voice had an edge now, not at her, but at the situation, at the number on the little digital screen that read $38.42, when his wallet held exactly 34. "Please." She slid the cake back across the counter without another word. It was a plain white sheet cake, nothing fancy. Buttercream roses in the corner. "Happy 7th birthday," Etta piped across the top in blue. It had been sitting in the bakery case at Bowers Market since Tuesday, and Walt had walked past it every day this week on his way to the meat counter, doing math in his head that never quite worked out. He paid for the milk, the bread, the ground beef, and the off-brand candles, took his bag, and didn't look at anyone as he walked out. The woman 2 spots back in line had watched the whole thing without blinking. She wore a gray canvas jacket that had seen better winters, jeans that weren't trying to look expensive, and a Cincinnati Reds cap pulled low enough that most people in Bowers hadn't recognized her, which was exactly the point. Nobody in this town was supposed to know that Ardith Calloway, CEO of Heartwarming Industrial, was standing in a grocery store 40 minutes from the plant she was about to decide the fate of. She told her assistant she was taking a personal day. That wasn't a lie, not exactly. She just hadn't specified what kind of personal. She watched Walt's back as he pushed through the automatic doors, watched the way his shoulders sat, not slump, not defeated, just carrying something heavy in a way he'd clearly practiced. She set her basket down on an empty shelf of canned green beans and walked to the register. "Ring up the cake," she told Loretta. Loretta blinked. "Ma'am, the one he put back." "Ring it up. I'll take it." Loretta's eyes flicked toward the front doors, then back. "You know him?" "No," Ardith said. And that was the truth. Not yet. Outside, Walt loaded the groceries into the bed of a Chevy that had 190,000 miles on it and a check engine light that had been on since spring. His daughter's bicycle was already back there too, a hand-me-down with the bent kickstand he kept meaning to fix, purple with faded streamers on the handlebars. Etta had picked out the color herself 2 summers ago, back when her mother was still around to hear her ask for it. He climbed into the driver's seat, and that was when the paper fell out of his jacket pocket. His pay stub from Heartwarming, folded into quarters, soft at the creases from being carried around too long, landed on the asphalt and sat there in a puddle of yesterday's rain. Ardith saw it through the store window as she waited for Loretta to bag the cake. She saw the logo before she saw the man attached to it. Heartwarming Industrial Solutions, Plant 4, Millhaven, Ohio. The plant. She was flying out Thursday to decide whether to close. She didn't say anything to Loretta about it. She just paid cash, exact. No card that could be traced to a name, and carried the cake out herself. The box balanced flat against her forearm like she'd done it 100 times. Though in truth, she hadn't held a grocery store cake box since she was 9 years old. By the time she reached the parking lot, Walt's truck was already pulling out onto Route 9. And she stood there a moment longer than she meant to, watching the taillights shrink, cake in her arms, wind cutting through a jacket that wasn't warm enough for late October in Millhaven. She hadn't been back to this town in 26 years. Millhaven hadn't changed the way people said it would. The dairy freeze on 3rd was gone, replaced by a vape shop with paper over half the windows. The high school still had the same green water tower behind it, rusted at the seams now. It was painted over 3 times in 3 different decades. Bowers Market was the same building it had always been. Same brick, same bell over the door that Ardith remembered from a childhood she'd spent most of her adult life trying not to think About. Her mother had worked that same register, a different one, an older machine, but the same spot, behind the same counter for 11 years. Delia Calloway had scanned other people's groceries 6 days a week and come home smelling like register receipts and cigarette smoke that wasn't even hers, secondhand from the break room. And once, when Ardith was 8, right around this same time of year, her mother had stood at that counter and quietly asked the cashier to put something back. It hadn't been a cake. It had been a coat, a blue one, from the Sears catalog rack, the kind with a hood lined in fake fur that all the other girls at Millhaven Elementary already had. Delia had held it up to Ardith in the store, said, "Let's see if it fits," and then, at the register, had done the math in her head and set it aside without a word, telling the cashier they'd changed their minds. Ardith remembered the particular quiet of that walk home. Not sad, exactly, just quiet in a way that made an 8-year-old understand something about money that she wasn't supposed to have to understand yet. 3 days later, the coat showed up on their porch. No note, no name, just the coat, folded inside a paper bag, sitting against the screen door like it had always belonged there. Delia never found out who left it. She'd asked around, careful and quiet, the way people in Millhaven asked things they didn't want to seem desperate about. Nobody ever claimed it. Ardith wore that coat for 3 winters, until the sleeve stopped reaching her wrists. She still thought about it sometimes, at 4 in the morning, in hotel rooms in Charlotte or Denver, or wherever the job had taken her that week. She thought about the fact that somebody in that store, Loretta's mother maybe, or another shopper, or God knew who, had watched a woman put something back and decided, quietly, without being asked, to do something about it. She had never once, in 26 years, been on the other side of that moment, until 20 minutes ago. Now, she sat in a rental car outside Bowers Market, with a birthday cake on the passenger seat, and she had absolutely no idea what she was supposed to do with it. She could mail it. Ridiculous, it was a cake, not a package. She could drive it to his house. She didn't know where he lived. She could ask Loretta. She went back inside. "I need an address," she said, setting a business card on the counter. Her real one, blank one, she used for exactly this kind of situation. Just her first name and a phone number. For the man who was just in here, Walt. Loretta's face did something complicated. "You're not gonna tell me why?" "I'm not. He's not gonna want charity, if that's what this is." "It's not charity," Ardith said, and she meant it, though she couldn't have explained why in that moment. "It's a cake somebody already paid for." Loretta studied her for a long few seconds. Studied the boots that cost more than they were trying to look like they cost. Studied the way the stranger held herself, like she was used to rooms going quiet when she walked into them. "You're not from around here." "I used to be," Ardith said. That seemed to settle something in Loretta, though not everything. She wrote the address on the back of a receipt. Walt Kowalczyk, 214 Fenmore Road, second house past the water tower, faded blue trim, you can't miss it. There's a bike in the yard. "Don't make this weird for him," Loretta said, sliding the receipt across. "He's got enough on his plate." "I know," Ardith said, and something in her voice made Loretta look up sharply, like she'd heard more in those 2 words than Ardith had intended to give away. Fenmore Road ran along the back edge of town, past the water tower, past a stretch of houses that had been built for factory families in the 50s and had aged the way factory towns aged when the factories stopped hiring the way they used to. Walt's house had the blue trim Loretta mentioned, peeling in long strips off the porch railing. And yes, there was the bike, Etta's, presumably, since it was too small for an adult and had streamers hanging off the handlebars, though it wasn't in the yard so much as leaning against the porch steps, like someone had ridden it hard and dropped it in a hurry. To get inside, Ardith parked across the street and sat there for 4 minutes without moving, cake box balanced on her knees, engine off, telling herself this was insane, that CEOs did not deliver birthday cakes to line workers whose jobs they were about to eliminate. that there was a version of this where it looked less like kindness and more like something being filmed for a lawsuit. Then the front door opened, and a small girl in a Halloween orange sweater ran out onto the porch, saw the bike, and let out a noise of pure delight, like she hadn't expected it to still be there. Like every day the bike survived was a small miracle. She had 2 missing front teeth and hair that had been brushed by someone in a hurry, and she climbed onto the bike and pedaled a tight, wobbly circle in the yard, calling back through the screen door, "Daddy, can I ride to Miss Denny's and show her my bike is fixed, kickstand's fixed, rest of you's on your own," Walt called back, and there was something in his voice, tired, but warm underneath the tired, the kind of warm that didn't announce itself. Ardith watched this from across the street with the cake still on her lap and thought about the numbers sitting in a folder back at her hotel. Plant 4, Mill Haven, 211 employees, projected savings from consolidation to the Georgia facility, 4.2 million annually. The kind of number that looked clean and reasonable on a slide. The kind of number that had looked clean and reasonable to her 12 hours ago. She got out of the car. Walt saw her crossing the street before Etta did, and something in his posture changed immediately. Not hostile, but braced. The way a man braces when a stranger's expression tells him this isn't a lost tourist conversation. "Help you?" he said. "I think this belongs to you," Ardith said, and held out the cake box. Walt looked at it, looked at her, looked at the box again, and Ardith watched the exact moment. Recognition landed not of her face, she was sure of that, but of the cake itself, the blue lettering, visible through the plastic window on the lid. "I don't understand," he said. "You put it back at Bowers about 20 minutes ago." His jaw tightened. Etta had stopped writing and was watching now, 1 foot on the pedal, 1 on the ground, sensing without understanding that something was happening between the grown-ups. "I don't need," Walt started. "I'm not asking if you need it," Ardith said. "I already paid for it. It's yours either way. You can throw it in the trash if you want, but somebody already covered it, so you might as well not waste $4 twice." That last part, the practical, almost dismissive way she said it, seemed to land differently than an outright act of charity would have. Walt's shoulders came down half an inch. "Who are you?" he said. Not sharp, just genuinely asking. "Somebody who used to live here," Ardith said. "A long time ago." "That's not a name." "No," she agreed. "It's not." Etta had abandoned the bike now and come to stand next to her father, looking up at the cake box, with the particular hope of a child who has already accepted disappointment and is afraid to unaccept it too quickly. "Is that my birthday cake?" "Yeah, baby," Walt said, voice rough in a way he tried to smooth over. "Looks like it is. Can I see it?" He crouched and opened the lid so she could look, and Ardith watched the girl's face crack in two. Something so pure and unguarded that she had to look away for a second. Out toward the water tower, toward the town that had somehow both changed everything and changed nothing at all in 26 years. "Thank you," Walt said, when he stood back up. His voice had dropped, quieter now that Etta had run off toward the porch, with the box hugged against her chest, like it might float away. "I mean it. But I need you to understand something. I don't take handouts. Easy. This isn't gonna become a thing, is it? You're not gonna show up again next week with groceries." "No," Ardith said. "I'm not." "Okay." He nodded slowly, like he was deciding whether to believe her. "Okay then. Thank you." He turned to go back to the house, and Ardith almost let him. She almost got back in the rental car and drove to her hotel and spent the evening rereading the Plant 4 consolidation report like she'd planned to, and none of what happened next would have happened at all. Instead, she said, "You work at Halvorsen." Walt stopped on the porch steps, turned around. "How'd you know that?" "Your pay stub. It fell out of your pocket in the parking lot," which was true, though it left out the part where she'd read the plant number and known exactly what it meant. "Yeah," Walt said, something guarded creeping back into his voice now, like this stranger knowing. Where he worked was a different kind of knowing than a cake. 7 years. Line assembly, second shift. "They treating you all right?" He gave a short laugh that had no humor in it. They're talking about closing us down. Whole plant. There's a meeting supposed to happen sometime this month. Corporate's supposedly deciding. Nobody tells us nothing until it's already decided. That's how it always goes. He looked at her for a second too long. Why do you care? I don't know yet, Ardith said, and that, at least, was honest. She drove back to the hotel with the windows cracked despite the cold. Because she needed the air moving, needed something to keep her from sitting still with what she was thinking. She pulled the consolidation report up on her laptop and read it again. And this time, the number 211 didn't read like a head count. It read like Walt's shift badge, like Edda's missing front teeth, like a rusted kickstand. Somebody had bothered to fix even when there wasn't money for a cake. She thought about the coat, about the paper bag on the porch, the folded fabric inside, the fact that whoever left it had never once come forward to be thanked, had never needed the thanks, had just quietly decided that a girl in this town shouldn't go without a coat if there was something to be done about it. She had spent 26 years building a life defined by leaving Millhaven and never looking back, by becoming the kind of person rooms went quiet for, by making sure no daughter of hers, if she'd had one, which she hadn't, the job had eaten that possibility along with most others, would ever stand at a register doing that particular math. And somewhere in that climb, she had learned to read a spreadsheet the way she used to read weather, looking only for what was coming, never for who was standing underneath it. She called her assistant at 9 that night. Push the Atlanta trip. I need 3 more days in Ohio. Ohio? Miss Calloway, the board's expecting the plant for recommendation by Friday. I know what they're expecting, Ardith said. I'm going to give them a better one. The next 4 days, Ardith did something she hadn't done in a decade. She worked from the ground instead of the top. She walked the plant floor in a hard hat and a borrowed vest, introduced by the regional manager only as corporate visiting for an efficiency review, which was vague enough to be true and specific enough not to cause panic. She watched Walt work a torque gun on the same line for 6 hours without knowing she was watching him specifically, though she found herself glancing that direction more than the review strictly required. She talked to line workers about overtime and insurance premiums and the 2-hour commute some of them would face if the work moved to the Georgia plant, which, as it turned out, would require most of them to either uproot their families or lose their jobs outright. A detail that had been reduced to a single line item labeled workforce transition cost in the report she'd been handed in Chicago. She found, going deeper into the numbers, with people who actually ran the machines instead of people who only modeled them, that the $4.2 million in projected savings assumed a level of efficiency the Georgia plant had never actually hit. Not once, not in 3 years of operation. She found that Plant 4E's real problem wasn't labor cost. It was 2 outdated stamping machines that could be replaced for less than 1/10 of what closing and relocating the entire operation would cost. Nobody senior had asked that question because nobody senior had walked the floor in years. On the 4th day, she called an emergency session with the board. She didn't mention Walt. She didn't mention the cake or the coat or Fenmore Road. She talked about equipment costs and retraining incentives and the actual audited efficiency numbers from Georgia, and she watched the room's resistance soften the way rooms always softened for her, not because she was persuasive in some magical way, but because she came in with better numbers than the people who wanted the opposite outcome. And better numbers always won eventually if you were patient enough to find them. The vote to keep Plant 4 open, with new equipment funded through the following fiscal year, passed 7-2. Nobody at Halvorsen ever connected the decision to a cake box or a folded pay stub in a grocery store parking lot. As far as the board was concerned, Ardith Calloway had simply done what she always did, outworked everyone else in the room until the facts bent toward the answer she already believed in. The announcement went out through normal channels 3 weeks later. A memo from HR, a brief mention in the Millhaven Gazette, under a headline about continued local investment. Walt heard about it on the floor during a shift meeting. The way everybody heard everything, secondhand, and half believed until the plant manager confirmed it wasn't a rumor. He called his sister that night, told her the news, said, "I don't know why. They're putting money into new stamping equipment, guess." Somebody upstairs finally did the math right and didn't think about it again beyond the relief of it, the simple, physical relief of a paycheck that would keep coming. He never learned Ardith's name. Loretta never told him, partly because Ardith had asked her not to, and partly because Loretta herself never quite worked out how a stranger in a Reds cap connected to a corporate decision made 2 states away. She just noticed, months later, small unmarked contribution had shown up for the Millhaven Elementary winter coat drive, enough to cover every kid on the list twice over, and something about the anonymity of it nagged at her in a way she couldn't quite name. Ardith went back to Chicago, back to the meetings, the flights, the version of her life that had rooms going quiet when she entered them, but she kept, in the bottom drawer of her desk, a printed photo she'd taken without really deciding, Etta on her bicycle in the side yard, streamers catching mid-spin, taken from across the street the day she delivered the cake. More evidence of a moment then, a photograph of a stranger's kid. She never showed it to anyone. She wasn't sure she could have explained why she kept it even to herself. On the night of Etta's actual birthday, 2 days after the cake had first been put back and paid for, Walt lit 7 candles in his kitchen. Off-brand ones burned a little unevenly, and Etta blew them all out on the first try, the way kids do when they still believe wishes work exactly as advertised. The cake tasted like every other grocery store cake. A little too sweet, buttercream slightly gritty at the edges, and none of them not Walt, not Etta, not the aunt and 2 cousins who'd come over for the evening, had any idea that the frosting rose in the corner had been paid for by a woman who once stood in that same store as an 8-year-old girl, watching her own mother do the exact same math at the exact same counter. A lifetime and 26 years ago, Etta asked for a second slice. Walt cut it for her without a word, the knife catching the kitchen light, and somewhere between the first bite and the second, without either of them noticing it happen, the whole hard week folded itself quietly into something that just looked, for one evening, like an ordinary family having cake.
Not every act of kindness comes with a name attached. Some of the most powerful moments in life happen quietly, without anyone ever finding out who did it. If this story moves you, hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs a little hope today.